Thank you very much, Paul. I've had that Civic for 12 years. In India, they have a great greeting. They put their hands together, they bow toward you, and they say namaste. And many of you may be familiar with this, but perhaps you don't know what it means. Namaste means I acknowledge the divinity inherent within you. I acknowledge the divinity inherent within you. What a great greeting. Sure beats howdy. And I believe that. We're all children of God. I believe that we have a little bit of divinity within each and every one of us. Now, speaking of divinity, I would like to acknowledge the presence of my wife, Kay. Are you listening, dear? And I would also like to recognize Sandy Schwartz, past district governor, who's with us on Zoom. Thank you for being here. And I also want to thank Bruce Powell. Bruce, raise your hand so people. Bruce is a good friend, and he is a Rotarian. He's a member of the Centerville Farmington Club. And he's the current district Rotary Foundation chair. And he has spent countless hours trying to help enhance your experience as a Rotarian. Now, when Bruce was a young fellow, he went on an LDS mission to Mexico. And he was very disturbed by the poverty that he saw there. And when he came back, he knew that he wanted to do whatever he could to help relieve the suffering he saw there. Now, eventually he became a Rotarian. And then I want to guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but maybe in the late 1990s, he discovered the power of Rotary grants for international projects. And he became expert at it. And he trained others in how to do the same thing. And while the structure of the grants has changed with the evolution of Rotary, he has kept at it. And I bet there is certainly no one else in Utah who's done more of these grants than Bruce. And of any grant that's done in international service, you can trace every single one of them back to Bruce. Thank you. To all of you here today and to all of you on Zoom, I acknowledge the divinity inherent within you. Namaste. I am a selfish person, and I am a selfless person. I like myself better when I'm selfless. And the Rotary Foundation helps me be that person. the Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. Now, have you ever heard a talk about the Rotary Foundation? Anybody? Okay, like a bunch of them. You've heard countless talks on the Rotary Foundation. Bruce, how many talks have you given about the Rotary Foundation? I'm guessing maybe 100. Probably 100. Now, why has Bruce done that? Does he like the sound of his own voice? No. He's done it because he remembers those kids in Mexico. And he wants to empower you to do good in the world your own way. And that's why he keeps at it. I personally love talks about the Rotary Foundation. I just can't get enough of them. Almost always, I learn something new. Now, maybe you've heard a talk about the Rotary Foundation and the types of grants it gives. Or maybe you've heard talks about the various recognition levels for donors. And that's in front of you in this program here. And thanks to Brett Sutherland for printing this up. Thank you, Brett. Maybe you've heard about the impact of these grants. In projects in your own community or throughout the world. Maybe you've heard that the Rotary Foundation has gotten, for 14 straight years, the highest rating of Charity Navigator. Maybe you've heard that when they look at financial reports, transparency, accountability, the Charity Navigator has given the Rotary Foundation its 100% rating. Can't get higher than 100%. But I'm not going to even mention that stuff. I'm going to talk about how the Rotary Foundation has affected me. And why should you care about that? Because there's nothing special about me that is not also special about you. You only have to be a Rotarian to take advantages of the opportunities that Rotary offers. In 2019, I was fortunate to be selected to lead a group study exchange to India. It was a 4-week-long cultural and professional exchange. And while we were there, with the help of Indian Rotarians, we got a chance to participate in Rotary's greatest endeavor, the eradication of polio. So this is my favorite picture. And when we came back and told our tales, Linda Cruz, the then president of our club, said, Scott, well, why don't you organize a trip for our Rotarians to go and do the same thing? And I thought, well, why not? So I've now, thus far, organized 8 trips to India for Utah Rotarians. And this is how things go. So one day, again, with the help of Indian Rotarians, we stage a rally and we go into a slum area. And we make a lot of noise, and we pass out flyers explaining to parents that the very next day, their kids can get the polio vaccine. And again, these are areas that do not see tourists. This is not the usual tourist spot. And so the kids just are pouring out of the woodwork, trying to get to a sight of these strange beings. And they want to touch you. And I mean, they're so excited. You know, we feel like rock stars. Of course, without the music and the drugs and the sex, but otherwise, we feel like rock stars. And then the next day, we go into these neighborhoods and immunize kids. First, we go to the homes of families who've refused to have their kids immunized. And most of these are Muslim families. And it's understandable when you've got a majority population telling a minority population what they should be doing, there can be some suspicion. And right on the doorway, there's chalk marks indicating that they've refused to have their kids immunized. And so we go to these homes, and they still refuse. So we go and we're immunizing kids, vaccinating them. And something wonderful happens. All of a sudden, these Muslim families who had previously not allowed their kids to get immunized, they come out and bring their kids. Now, I warned our Rotarians that, you know, they don't need our help. They've got 2 million volunteers to get these immunizations done. And that in National Immunizations days, they will immunize 100 million children in one day. Could we ever do that here? I don't think so. But on this day, the only explanation I had is they must have thought, well, if these foreigners are coming to our neighborhood, maybe this is important. So we did something good that day. The Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. Educated people do, but not in these neighborhoods. No. Now, one other thing we get to see is how, with the enormity of the project, eradicating polio, we get to see the government, UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and Rotary all working together to get this job done. And at the same time, we get the thrill of giving a child the oral polio vaccine. Now, early on, I figured, as a child, really, I figured out that the purpose of my life was to relieve suffering. And this led me to medical school, and then a surgery training program, and indirectly to Rotary. I love our 7 areas of focus. clean water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, disease prevention and treatment, community and economic development, supporting our environment, and peace. I love Rotarians because they are willing to tackle the biggest problems facing humanity. And the final one is peace. And really, all these have to do with peace. You can't have peace if you don't have clean water. You can't have peace if mothers and babies are dying. You can't have peace if people can't read and write. Now, can we depend on government to provide us with peace? I don't think so. I think it's going to be have to be up to civil society to give us peace. And what better organization in civil society is there than Rotary? We're everywhere. 200 countries and geographic areas. We're actually in more areas than the United Nations. We bring everybody together. We bring in every religion together. We bring Jews, Muslims, Christians, Baha'is, Sikhs, Jains, every religion. In fact, we even bring Cougars and Utes together. Now, our club, Salt Lake City, we did a global grant with the Chandigarh, India Rotary Club. And what we wanted to address is stunting in children. Stunting is where a child is short for their age. And one of the and this is most commonly due to malnutrition between conception and age 2, that first 1,000 days of life. If you're malnourished, then you'll be short for your age. And what that means is that you don't have normal brain development. Now in India, it's common to have rates of stunting of 35 to 40%. Let me repeat that, 35 to 40% of kids in communities in India will be stunted. So we wanted to address this. So in this global grant, we gave village health workers tablets with software from the World Health Organization so that they could plot height and weight of children, so to see if they're on track. And if they're not, inform mothers that you've got to get better nutrition for this kid. And they also would teach mothers while they're pregnant the importance of good nutrition. So I went to Chandigarh to visit this project, and I'm sitting in the back seat of a car, and we're driving off to some villages near Chandigarh. And I'm sitting in the back seat with the secretary of the Chandigarh Rotary Club, a young fellow, mid-30s. And we're chatting, and he mentions to me that when he was in high school, he was a Rotary Youth Exchange student. And so I asked him, well, where did you go? And he said, Pakistan. Pakistan? Really? And as you may know, there's tension between India and Pakistan. And I said, wow, well, what did you learn? And he said, what I learned is that we should never go to war with Pakistan. We speak the same language. We have the same culture. We love the same food. We should never be at war with Pakistan. Former RI President Carl Wilhelm Stanhammer said, if all 17-year-olds had a chance to be a Rotary Youth Exchange student, there would be no more war. I think he's right. The Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. Now, I got to be a district governor, believe it or not. One of the great experiences of my life. Any past president of a club, I would encourage you to do the same. Wonderful experience. I got to travel and visit all 45 clubs in Utah. Got to meet wonderful people. Got to speak to them. They would show off the projects they do in their communities, for which they're very proud. I put 5,000 miles on that Civic. It was a great experience. I go to one rural club, and I got there early. Didn't take me as long as I expected. And I stopped at a little coffee place, a local version of Starbucks, just to kill some time. And I'm having a cup of coffee, and it gets closer to noon, which is when they meet. And I look on my phone for the address, the meeting place, and it's not there. I call my secretary because she'll know. She doesn't answer. I look at my watch, it's 1:15. I, got there early, and now I'm going to be late, and that's going to look bad. And so I asked the owner, do you know where the Rotary Club meets? And there was a fellow in the shop, and he said, well, I'm a Rotarian. We meet at the county library just a block down and a block to the left. But you don't want to go today. Well, why don't I want to go today? Because the district governor's speaking. Now, the training they give district governors to be is fantastic. You're trained for 2.5 years. You're trained to do this 1-year job. And the highlight is the International Assembly. And this is where all 530 plus district governor elects and their spouses and all the staff, all the trainers gather in one hotel from all over the world at the same time. Fabulous experience. And I'm going to the International Assembly, and I got a secondary agenda here. I'm planning my 8th trip to India, and on our schedule is we're going to visit Kolkata. And so I want to meet the district governor elect from Kolkata. Maybe we can visit him and his Rotarians when we go there in a couple months. And maybe they would want to do a global grant with us. But how am I going to find him? And this is what's on my mind as I land in San Diego and go down to baggage claim. You know, how am I going to find this guy or woman? I don't even know. And so I arrive in baggage claim, and the very first person I meet is Mukul Sinha, the district governor-elect from Kolkata. And there he is with his wife. So a couple months later, we're meeting with he and his Rotarians. And it turns out his dream is to do something about cervical cancer. Big problem in India. And what his dream is to immunize low-income girls with the HPV vaccine to prevent cervical cancer. So this ends up producing 2 global grants. Each of them immunize 1,000 young girls with 2 doses of the HPV vaccine. The Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. Now, Rotary has been such a gift to me. Now, without Rotary, would I have ever thought to be part of eradicating polio? No way. The thought would never have occurred to me. One popular district grant is giving 3rd graders dictionaries. Without Rotary, would I have purchased some dictionaries and taken them down to a 3rd grade class? Not a chance. Would I have known the importance of 3rd grade? That if kids are not reading at 3rd grade level by the end of that year, then they're more likely to drop out of school, more likely to be incarcerated? Would I have known that kids learn to read up to 3rd grade, and after 3rd grade, they read to learn? Would I have known any of that without Rotary? I don't think so. In that one photograph, Brett Sutherland and I are pictured there, and we're standing in front of a global grant we did with the Agra Taj Mahal Club. It turns out in India, in public schools, they have latrines for girls and boys together. So when girls start menstruating, they drop out of school. Now, without Rotary, I might have read about this problem. I might have said to myself, oh, somebody should do something about this. That's just stupid. But because of Rotary, I got to do something about it. So with the help of the Indian Club, we built 13 toilet blocks, each containing 6 latrines for girls in 13 schools. Overnight, 4,000 more girls went to school. The Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. Now, as I mentioned, the purpose of my life is to relieve suffering. I once mentioned this in a speech to a Rotary club, and it was a fairly big club. And in the middle of my talk, there was an older gentleman toward the back who raised his hand right in the middle of my talk. And I thought, gee, how rude. You know, I don't want to call on this guy. I'm right in the middle of my talk. I'm on a roll. I've got the crowd right in my hands. I mean, less than half of the audience is looking at their phones. But he insists. And so finally I have to call on him. Yes. You say that the purpose of your life is to relieve suffering. Well, if that's true, then stop talking now. I don't know if you've had a chance to think about the purpose of your life, but you could use the one that Bruce and I have, relieving suffering. There's a lot of needless suffering going on out there. And it turns out you don't have to go to medical school. You don't have to do a 6-year training program in surgery. All you need to do is give to the Rotary Foundation and or participate in its grant programs. One last story. In 2009, after you might remember when the Muslim families brought their kids to get immunized, we're done for the day, and we're walking back to the bus to take us back to the hotel. And I'm walking by myself between two groups of Rotarians. And again, this is in a neighborhood where they're not used to seeing foreigners. And so this fellow riding a bicycle about my age rides up, sees me, rides up to me, jumps off his bike, and starts walking with me. He says, "Where are you from?" "The United States." "What are you doing here?" "I'm with Rotary, and we're here giving the polio vaccine to children." We walk a few more paces. "What do you get out of it?" "I get a world free of polio." We walk a little further, and he stops, and he says, "Namaste," and gets on his bike and rides off. The Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. Thank you. Thank you. Roger? Yes. That's fabulous. Great. Thank you, Roger. So there's a couple of forms at your seats. And again, the program thanks our donors. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you would like to become a member of the Paul Harris Society, which means a commitment of $1,000 a year for as long as you can do it, and you can stop at any time you want, then I'd encourage you to fill out this blue form. And in the middle on the left, you just check that box saying that you want to be a Paul Harris Society member. And you're not going to, you can fill out the rest of it. You can just put your credit card number and how often you want them to draw on the credit card. And I do this because it's painless. I don't have to put any attention on it. You won't know your Rotary ID number. I can look that up for you. So if you fill out the form, just bring it to me and I'll take care of it. On the middle part of the right side, where it says gift designation, if you don't know what to put, which box to check there, I'd encourage you to check the annual fund, because that'll bring a little bit of the money back to our club. And if you have any questions, please see me. If you want to do a one-time donation, then use this form. And again, fill it out the best you can. You're not going to know our club number, even though we're the 24th club in Rotary history. The number they give us is 1080. Don't ask me why. And then I can fill out a lot of this for you if you have trouble. But thank you. Anything else? Bob. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Bob. Thatcher.
Now, I want to tell everybody I've prepped him on this question before I'm asking.
Yeah.
But I feel that there's a competition between the Salt Lake Rotary and the international Rotary.
Yeah.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
Because from my personal point, I really like to just give directly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't like to get something international. I know they've got a rating of 100%. I know that it's
Yeah.
But as a Rotarian, I like to be right involved with what's happening. So, and then he's tired and he's not kind of this out and everything like that. So, how do you balance the Salt Lake Foundation and the international?
Yeah.
The Salt Lake Foundation does really good things.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I'd answer, so the question is, well, we've got a club foundation. Which one should we be supporting? Do we support our club foundation, or do we support the Rotary Foundation? Anybody have 2 kids or more? You have 2 foundations. You know, I support them both. You get different things. You get different things. So I spoke about what I get from the Rotary Foundation. And certainly we do a lot of good in this community through our own club foundation. And through our own club foundation, we fund, through our galas, we fund the club money for global grants. So there's synergy between them. So yeah, I love both equally. Yes.
So, but we contribute to the foundation, the Rotary Foundation. How does that money come back to impact our club?
Yeah. So the question is, how does money from the Rotary Foundation come back to the club? Okay, this is getting a little bit in the weeds, but when you give to the annual fund, not when you give to the endowment or to Polio Plus or to any of the areas of focus, but when you give to the annual fund, that comes back to the district 3 years later. 47.5% comes back to the district. And then the district, and this is where Bruce Powell comes in, so any complaints should go to him. And that's divvied up between district grants and global grants. So our club will get about a quarter on a dollar back on district grants. And that goes to our committees, you know, wherever the board wants to put that money. And then half of that comes back goes to global grants. And that gets a little more complicated as far as who gets what on global grants. But we get our fair share. Well, some people think more than our fair share of, and not as bad as Centerville, Farmington, but we got our fair share of global grant money. Yeah. 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 Both. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And the impact of that is over 5,000 people. And we'll see that in 2 days.
Yeah.
And next month.
Yeah. And Tom, I remember a 3H grant so many years ago. And I think that was like a $300,000 grant, $650,000 grant in Bolivia. Is that right? And who was in charge of that? Yes. Yeah. Yes. 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 So Tom was in charge of that $650,000 matching grant that did a lot of great things in Bolivia. Okay. Yes, Nick. Yeah. Ooh. Where's Jay Jacobson when I need him? Okay, so not a lot of cases. The question was, where do we stand with polio? I haven't looked. I should have boned up on this. But yeah, we're making progress. We're making progress. There's just 2 endemic countries left, Pakistan and Afghanistan. And of course, what's left is the hardest part. So we have double-digit cases a year. And so I don't know how many cases this year so far, but 27 this year? Okay. Okay, thank you. But, you know, we have to do it ASAP. The longer it hangs around, the harder it's going to be. Yeah.
Would you say you'd rather have us check the box for Polio Plus than the general fund?
Yeah. You know, it's what gives you passion. What makes, yeah, it's your money. You pick what changes you want to see in the world, and you can direct it. So I would what gives you satisfaction? That's the box I would check. Yeah. Yes, Dwayne.
There's a saying out there that when all is said and done, usually more is said than done. And the beauty of what you've talked about here today is that you've taken, you said, learn to read, read to learn. There's more levels that go after that. Eventually, you get to the point where you want to improve the human condition.
Yeah.
That's what Rotary does in the world. You've done amazing things. It's been such an honor to be part of this club. I thank you. I thank Rotary for making the world a better place.
Yes. It's really the Rotary Foundation helps Rotarians do good in the world. It's just, I'm so proud to be part of this. My life would not be the same. Thank you all.